Shabbat Shalom. Happy Thanksgiving. Tonight, in honor of the holiday and in the spirit of friendship and fellowship, I want to share with you two stories, one contemporary and one biblical, about the power of human connection and the potential each person carries within them to transform the life of another, even a complete stranger. Our first begins in 2016, when Wanda Dench, a woman from Mesa, Arizona, wrote a text to her grandson, inviting him for Thanksgiving. "Thanksgiving dinner is at my house at 3 p.m., she wrote. "Let me know if you're coming." When 17-year-old Jamal Hinton received the text, he was a bit confused. "Who's this?" he answered. "It's your grandma," Wanda wrote back. "Grandma? Can I have a picture?" Jamal asked. When Wanda sent a selfie and Jamal followed suit, it became quite clear. Jamal was not Wanda's grandson, and Wanda was most certainly not Jamal's grandmother. Little did Wanda know, her actual grandson had recently changed his cell phone number, and the number stored in her phone now belonged to young Jamal. Now, the story might have ended here. One could imagine Wanda saying, "Oh, wrong number, so sorry," and Jamal simply answering, "No problem, have a nice day." But their story does not end here. In fact, it has only just begun. Now, it is said that the biblical story I'm about to share with you is the very one that catalyzes Joseph's odyssey into Egypt. This week, buried deep within Vayeshev, our Torah portion about the early stages of the Joseph saga, we find an almost throwaway exchange between two strangers, Joseph and an unidentified man, who have met by chance in a field in Shechem. Joseph has been sent to these fields by his father Jacob to scope out his brothers, but upon arriving there, they are nowhere to be found. As Joseph wanders about, this unnamed man approaches him and says, "Ma tevakesh, what are you looking for?" It only takes one line, just two words, for the reader to glean some very important details about this man. First, we notice that the man seeks out Joseph and not the other way around. He sees Joseph roaming, presumably lost, and he takes it upon himself to approach him. Why? Why does he go out of his way, diverting his own path to assess this stranger's predicament? Joseph has not asked for help, but the man offers it nonetheless. Whether we're talking about biblical times or modern day, human proclivities are still the same. And we know most people just can't be bothered. They're busy, they're involved in their own lives, and they are very often dubious of strangers. But not so here. The unnamed man sees a disoriented and roving Joseph and moves towards him, indicating a measure of curiosity and compassion that is uncommon, to say the least. When Joseph tells him that he's looking for his brothers, the man kindly responds that they've left, but he heard them say they were headed for Dothan. Now, the peculiarity of this stranger knowing the exact whereabouts of Joseph's brothers aside, he does send Joseph to the exact right place, setting into motion the series of events which eventually lead to Joseph's ascendancy in Egypt and to him saving his family and the Egyptian people from famine. In fact, Joseph's life his life story hinges in many ways on this single interaction with this man who approached him in the fields of Shechem. It was Professor Stephen Jay Gould of blessed memory who popularized the contingency theory of evolution, a theory which states that every single moment in the chain of history matters and necessarily impacts what will come next. As researcher Zachary Blount explains, historical outcomes are contingent on long chains of events loaded with tiny little details. A dropped packet of cigars wrapped with the Confederate Army's marching orders was found by a Union soldier, which led to the Battle of Antietam, which led to Lincoln announcing the Emancipation Proclamation. What if those cigars hadn't been dropped, or if they hadn't been found by a Union soldier? And so we ask, what if Joseph hadn't been approached by that man in that field? What if that man had simply passed Joseph by? We make choices of all kinds every single day. Gould teaches us that our choices matter immensely and reverberate through time. Remember Wanda, the grandmother who accidentally texted Jamal and invited him for Thanksgiving? Well, once they figured out that they were definitively not related, Jamal nevertheless wrote this note back to Wanda. "Can I still get a plate, though?" It could have been read as a joke, and perhaps it was meant to be taken as such. But now, Wanda was presented with a choice. Does she shut this conversation down? Does she pretend it never happened? Does she erase this number and move on with her day? No. Wanda makes a different decision, a decision that will impact her and Jamal for years to come. She, knowing nothing more about Jamal other than his phone number, decides to invite him for Thanksgiving. "Of course you can have a plate," she wrote. "That's what grandmas do, feed everyone." Jamal and his family joined Wanda and her family that year for Thanksgiving, and they have gathered every year since. As reported in the New York Times in 2020, Ms. Dench and Mr. Hinton's chance encounter in 2016 blossomed into a deep friendship. "After meeting her the first time, I just knew," noted Mr. Hinton. "It doesn't matter. You can be friends with anybody. You can be family with anybody." Wanda's audacious act of kindness was transformative, sparking a beautiful and unexpected bond that has not only changed their lives, but the lives of so many who have followed their story. Now, many have wondered about the identity of that unnamed man in the field, the one who helped Joseph in finding his brothers. While theories abound, there is one theory offered by the French commentator Rashi that feels entirely appropriate for tonight. He explains that this man is, in fact, not a man at all, but rather an angel, the angel Gabriel. Now, why would this man, who barely speaks 2 sentences in our Torah, be elevated in this way? Well, beyond the textual acrobatics that our commentators employ, I believe it comes down to this man's selfless choice to extend his hand to another, to reach out to Joseph with kindness, to help a fellow human in dire need. Instrument of God or not, this man's actions show him to be angel-like. For in that moment, he changed the very course of Joseph's life. With one radically bold, split-second decision, Wanda altered the course of history that she now shares with Jamal and his family. In this way, Wanda's actions too prove her to be a kind of angel. But so too Jamal, for he too took an incredible leap of faith. He too acted with extraordinary generosity and openness. He too made a decision to welcome a unique and unusual friend into his life. At any point, Wanda and Jamal could have chosen easier, more conventional paths, but instead they chose to open their hearts to each other. They chose to accept one another. They chose in that moment to believe in the best of humanity with uncommonly powerful results. As we move into this Thanksgiving weekend and into Hanukkah beyond, let us reflect on the inflection points of these two stories and the various inflection points in our lives. We each meet with inflection points like these each and every day as we walk through the streets, as we learn of friends in need, as we hear of people suffering in our midst. Whether we choose to lend a hand or give of our time or call that friend or open our home or share a meal or not, we must recognize that every choice matters, and every choice echoes throughout time and history in some meaningful way. So, what compels us to offer our hand to someone in need? What draws us near to others? What drives that leap of faith within us? Could we too act as angels here on earth? Ken Yehi Ratzon. Shabbat Shalom.